This is Peak Earth. I'm Case Bradford. Thank you for tuning in to this episode with Mikayla Sprung. I really enjoyed this conversation with Mikayla. We discussed topics like heavy metal toxicity. What are some sources to look out for? How could one approach the problem of contamination and the conundrum that we face being surrounded by so much toxicity? One of those solutions is consuming raw animal foods like raw milk, raw cheese, and raw meat. This is a very controversial topic and one that I really enjoy because it holds so much potential power. We discuss why one would want to consider eating meat raw and how to begin eating raw meat and raw milk and enjoying these high vitality foods. We also discuss the company that Mikayla runs called Gordita Skincare. She is the founder of Gordita Skincare, and that is a grass-fed and finished tallow-based skincare company. Amazing for the skin. There will be a link down below so that you can check out everything Gordita offers. There's links to everything that we touch on and discuss if you'd like to dig deeper. There'll be a bunch of links down below to people and books and topics of discussion. I really enjoyed this convo and I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you. If you'd like to contribute to Peak Earth, there are a few ways you could do that. One is leaving a 5-star review on the Apple app or the Spotify app. That helps this podcast reach more listeners. Another way is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You could watch this over on YouTube if you aren't listening to it and you prefer to see it with your eyeballs. A third way is just to go and live your best life. Enjoy life to the fullest. Be the best person you can be. Self-actualize. And that's actually the best way to contribute to Peak Earth, is to take any information that you were called to learn through this dialogue and apply it and integrate it in your life. Share it with others. Many are struggling, and we can all up level. We can all increase our quality of life by sharing good ideas. That's the purpose of this podcast. So thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy this episode with
Aw,
Mikayla Sprung. How are you?
good. How are you today?
Doing well. Great to connect with you. I've just for all the listeners, there's a dog Nala here with me, so hopefully she stays out of the conversation. But I'm stoked to be here, connected with you, to learn more about you and your story and everything that you're into. I'm sure it's going to be really interesting and help a lot of people who are struggling with similar things.
Yeah, for sure. Such a pleasure to connect. I know we've been following each other for, it seems like a long time now, so it's good to have a conversation finally.
It is, yeah. And I'm curious. You said you're joining from Canada. Did you grow up there? What was your experience like?
Yeah, I was born and raised here, which was pretty fantastic. I mean, it's really cold here during the winter. It sucks, but the summers are so beautiful. So yeah, I grew up here all my life, and grew up mostly in nature a lot. We live kind of outside of the city, my family and I. So yeah, I really appreciate that a lot. And yeah, grew up with a lot of animals and just always felt very connected in that sense.
I think I probably had a somewhat similar upbringing, being raised in New Hampshire, which is pretty close to Canada, a few hours away. Very, very cold, cloudy, and the summers were beautiful, although a little hot. But it was definitely the best time of the year for sure.
Yeah.
What sort of things do you like to do in the summer?
A lot of hiking kind of stuff, mostly just, I guess, frolicking outside. I'm not like a big hike person. People are like, oh, you want to go hike a mountain? Not so much, just more going out. This year I've been doing a lot of foraging of different plants and things, so that's been fun. And then yeah, just getting out to the mountains, taking some road trips and stuff, spending a lot of time in the sun.
Sweet.
Yeah, nothing too crazy.
What are some things that you forage for in your area?
This year it's been a lot of horsetail plant. Do you know what that is?
No.
It's cool. It's actually, I was just writing a post about it. It's one of the oldest plants on Earth, and it's like very rich in silica. So it's really good for hair, skin, nails, bones, a bunch of functions in the body. And then also, what else? A lot of flowers, wild roses, red clover, things like that. Yeah, we have a lot of things growing around here, so it's pretty fantastic.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think I heard of silica in the context of helping to detox some of what is being sprayed by the planes through the
The aluminum, yeah,
yeah.
it's good for that. Um, the especially well, I guess there's like different forms of the silica that can be really good, but I think the horsetail's good for binding it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it can be great for that. A lot of people have aluminum toxicity to some extent, so I think yeah, more silica the better for sure.
I was just speaking to my friend Vance, who owns Maritime Medicinals. He was in town,
Oh
and
yeah,
he.
he's been going off on the heavy metals. I love to see it.
Oh
I'm like,
yeah,
yes, thank you. Because not many people talk about it at all. So that's been really refreshing. Yeah.
it's a deep one. It's
Mm-hmm.
such an amazing. Well, I come from a place of understanding that we're really living in this toxic age where you can almost define the era in which we live as one of toxicity. Unfortunately, I try to be
Mm-hmm.
optimistic and not negative about it, but it's just everywhere, and it's an underlying issue in just about every health problem. And most people don't look at it like that, and it really is true. And heavy metals, I think, play a primary role in that toxicity. They're sort of like micro metals, if I'm understanding correctly, in the context of like microplastics, which are beginning to be more paid attention to. And the metals are just like micro metals that are of various composition, and they're coming from like car exhaust or processed food or planes that are spraying these metals in the sky, and probably other sources as well. But it's a steep issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's actually one of the worst. You should follow Clark, like Nutritional Analytics. Do you follow him on Twitter?
I think so.
Okay, well, he's like the expert on all of this. I'm actually doing like a mineral balancing program for heavy metal detox. That's what I was mentioning with like the detox thing I was
Okay.
doing earlier. Um, and it's fascinating. It's really crazy, but yeah, it's one of the craziest ones because it really changes how people act and like their personality, and it can actually like yeah. Um, I don't know. I'm not like super educated on it, but just kind of, like on a surface level, it can just impact people so much and like the way that they are. And so many mental health issues or illnesses are just certain metal toxicities and mineral imbalances. And the further you dive into that, the crazier it gets, where it's like, oh, I don't even really believe in mental health issues the way that, even severe ones, like the way that, it's diagnosed, because it's actually just reflecting that something's out of balance in the body. Like people aren't inherently broken in that sense. They could have been kind of born with it, but even then they were born with these toxicities or imbalances. And yeah, and it's not like everything can just be turned around quickly. And sometimes there's like too much damage to come back to like a full, I guess, healthy, coherent state. I don't know, from my understanding, I'm not sure if this completely makes sense, but yeah, it's a crazy rabbit hole to go down. And unfortunately, we live in a time where it's like impossible to avoid heavy metals. And even for myself, I've been in the health space for so long. Like I was into this stuff when I was like 20, I don't know, I was like 14. I was getting into things like over 10 years ago. And um yeah, and my friends now are like, what do you mean you have heavy metals? Like you're, the most cautious person I know. How does this work? And it's like, no, everyone has them. They're everywhere. It's unavoidable. And yeah, it's definitely something to be aware of. So I'm really happy to see more people sharing about it online.
Me too. I've long held this suspicion that negativity, which could manifest in a lot of different ways, depression, anxiety, or just like constantly complaining about things, is linked with heavy metals, just from a intuitive standpoint, because you've got this like dense, heavy, negative energy. And
Mm-hmm.
we also know that these heavy metals are going to amplify the negative effects of EMF in the body, which is like a whole separate rabbit hole, which we could
Mm-hmm.
go down if we want. But then I think another big source of these heavy metals is vaccines, unfortunately, and
Oh
most of us
yeah, for
were loaded
sure.
up on those things just at birth without really much of a choice. And so there's a lot of different directions we could go in this. But those are some things that come to mind as we just kind of discuss this deep issue.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that, because it's like intuitively, yeah, you're really correct. But also, what's interesting is if someone is in a really negative state emotionally and like their minerals are imbalanced, depleted in certain ways, they'll hold on to heavy metals more. And it can, if that makes sense. And it's like, yeah, if someone's really depleted in certain things, and this is where it's a huge issue when people, eat badly and have severe like nutrient and mineral deficiencies, because then they're more likely to hold on to toxins in their body. They're not, things aren't working properly. And yeah, it's just like this really bad cycle. The vaccine thing being a huge one. And I talk about this with people a lot. I'm like, we can kind of get into this a little bit. I won't go too crazy, but it's like, it's not just that the vaccines are bad. Like, we obviously know that. I am very against vaccines in general, but even like 50, 100 years ago, vaccines they wouldn't affect us as badly because we didn't have the amount of environmental toxins that we do now. Like, we're so toxin burdened and like so metal burdened that vaccines, it will tip things over the edge, like really badly, big time, especially. And it's not just because there's more vaccines, even though that is a huge issue. It's also because like babies are being born with higher heavy metal levels than 100 years ago or so, and then when they get all these vaccines, when they're like literally infants, it's definitely going to tip things over the edge. And I don't know if you see that, but I'm just thinking, I'm like, people are probably going to come at me for this, but I don't really care at this point. Like, I'm pretty vocal, but I can even see now, I can usually tell when a kid has been vaccinated or not. Like, I can literally see it, like the way that they act. And my friends with kids that aren't vaccinated, like, they just have this glow and awareness that is completely different than the kids I know that have had a bunch of vaccines. And those kids, they're usually off. They look toxic. Their eyes look off. Like, I can see the whites of their eyes and even their irises. I'm like, ooh, that's not good. They have really bad eye circles. And yeah, it's really interesting. It's a crazy thing to go down.
I've observed that as well, and I've spoken to parents who have observed it in their own children who they've chosen not to vaccinate, and they've said, "Wow, my children are way different from the other children
Yeah.
they hang out with." And it's really sad because it is such a polarizing and controversial issue for whatever reason, likely funded by the companies who make massive amounts of money from selling vaccines. But
Wow.
it's a tough one to unravel because there's also a lot of fear around it, and the idea that this one choice could lead to potential diseases in the future. When now we're learning, I think now we've really crossed somewhat of a threshold with with Robert Kennedy in office, making headway against, or at least creating better vaccines. And that's an important thing because like you mentioned, that there's a ton of other toxins that we have that are somewhat inescapable. And there's also just the lack of minerals in our food from our depleted soil. And I had a previous guest on the podcast a long time ago, Ben Samuels, who wrote a lot about intaking more minerals as an agonist against heavy metals to help the body process.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that we definitely can focus on is getting more minerals in. How do you approach that in your life?
Um, nutrient dense diet is a big one. Like, just, eating the way that I guess we kind of eat in general. Um, and then also, yeah, like taking trace mineral supplements. I mean, right now, I'm really deep in like this mineral balancing protocol. So it's like based on a hair test and then like seeing which minerals, I need to kind of bring up in certain ways, and it's like what I need to take more of. So I guess doing it like that. In general, I'm not a big fan of just like throwing supplements at people. Like, I'm against it, but I'm not against it in like a testing sense, like doing it based off of blood testing or hair testing. So I think that that is a good approach. But if someone isn't working with a practitioner with that, yeah, I think in general, it's just like really nutrient dense food, nose to tail. Um, yeah. And like local and seasonal eating, I think that's a big one too. There's like a bunch of other things that are good for mineral content, but it's way more about consistency than anything, and lifestyle. Yeah.
Beautiful. I I do like throwing supplements at people. I will walk around Venice Beach and just throw Shilajit tablets into
Take
people's.
this Shilajit now. Shilajit's one I'm like, that could be fine. It's like that one I'm like, that's fine. I think people could have that. It's not a big deal. But there's a lot of other ones I'm like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Supplements are definitely over leveraged as like a silver bullet, especially on social media, because there's an incentive to sort of sell them. And I think another important part of this that is worth mentioning now is just on the mineral front is how salt has been demonized and how it's just such an important essential source of minerals from like really pretty full spectrum. And Shilajit is somewhat of like for people who aren't familiar, it's almost like a super salt. It's a herbo mineral that comes from the earth as a result of many millions of years of compression and humification, and it's a really helpful just foundational mineral source. It's really just you're just kind of consuming the earth in a way, very mineral rich. And salt is another great one that you can pretty much add on anything, and it makes it taste a little bit better and gives you more energy and vitality and helps your body detox heavy metals.
Yeah. The salt one is interesting because in like the raw meat space, I was just thinking about this again. I've studied a lot of that crazy stuff as well, kind of gone down these rabbit holes. And I agree with a lot of it, and I mostly eat raw. I don't necessarily talk about it too much, so I don't want to push it on people because I'm like, we don't really know, and I don't want people to just like jump into this and then have a crazy detox response and then be like, oh, it's your fault. So I just kind of like, yeah, this is what I eat. I'm not telling you to eat it. But yeah, in that space, like they're very anti-salt, and there's like some reasons for that. And I'm definitely against like regular table salt, that's for sure. Like the form is really important. But I've talked to a lot of people about it, and it's like, no, especially in the world we're living in today and all the stressors, we arguably need quite a bit more. And then like on, mineral tests too, people will see that and say like, oh yeah, you need to up your salt intake. Yeah, really interesting thing. And it's interesting that it's been so demonized, and it's actually something that we need more. Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of demonization, and the raw meat diet that you're referring to, I really appreciate the way that you share the way that you eat, because you'll post these beautiful tartare meals that you're having, or these shakes of raw milk and raw eggs. And I think that's the best way to do it, is just share beautiful looking, delicious looking, nutritious looking meals that you're enjoying instead of like eating a raw steak with your bare hands, just like kind of for social media attention.
Yeah, it's also no, I think that that's a big one, and it turns people off, first of all, but it's also like it's still really important to bring the nuance into it, like all the things, and that's where I get into a lot of arguments with people, and even with people that are like I'm like on the same page with, because I say like, okay, yeah, but we also need to have caution with this, and they're like, yeah, I'll tell you a story after this, I think is relevant. But with the raw meat thing, it's like I'm all for it, but I also acknowledge that it can induce a detox response for people, and that if someone asks me about it, I'm like, okay, we'll start slow, because if you haven't eaten raw at all, you've never had raw milk before, and you have a bunch of raw milk, you might like shit your pants. Like you can't just like jump into that, or like jump into fermenting meat and fermenting milk right away when your gut is still a disaster. Like it's only a little bit at a time. And obviously people, they don't really care about that. They just jump into doing things. And I think it's important to be cautious, and really listen. Everyone's bodies are so different, so they really need to learn to listen to their body. That's like the most important thing. Because even with the raw milk thing, I know people that still can't tolerate it despite, trying it for a long time. And yeah, like years of doing it, but then after they fixed certain gut issues, they could tolerate it. So it's just, it's kind of the state that someone's in, and it's not one size fits all. But I was going to say along the lines of that, something that it's like the methylene blue thing. Like everyone seems to have an opinion on that. It's really blown up. It's a funny thing. I love how I feel like Twitter caused this giant blow up of methylene blue. And I've taken it quite a bit. I don't really take it as much anymore just because my body doesn't seem to want it. But I remember, I guess, when I first was reading about it, I was like, oh yeah, some people get adverse reactions, but it's very small amount. And then I had a friend tell me that she tried it and she got the craziest reactions, like full Herx reaction, rash all over her body, all these issues. And I was like, oh my gosh, freaking out, trying to talk to people about it. And so many people were like, no, that's not possible. I'm like, no, it is. It happened. Like, let's come back here. And, yeah, and they kind of just passed it off. There's a whole bunch of things it could be. And I remember I got in an argument a little bit with another friend about the methylene blue. And I was like, look, I just think it's important you tell people to proceed with caution. It's a really strong thing and it's fantastic for certain people at certain times. But part of me is like against just people jumping into these supplements without anything. And so this other guy took it, and then I get a call, and this guy's like, I gave methylene blue to my friend, and he's having this crazy reaction. And I was like, oh no. But I mean, those are the only two cases, but I think just more kind of along the lines of the raw meat thing too. It's like, I think it's just important for people to see both sides of it. And like, that's okay. Like, it's okay if there's going to be negative sides to everything, but just so it's informed, because as like say with the vaccine thing, like if people think it's all good or all bad, I think it's all bad, but that's my opinion. It's like, it's important to like be transparent with people. Yeah, that's just my 2 cents. That was a little bit of a ramble, but anyway.
Glad you mentioned that, because that is really important, and it makes me think of, on the raw meat front, it's most people who like eating meat, who like steak, are going to want it most likely medium rare or rare. And
Mm-hmm.
what's
Unless
really
they're
the
a loser. No, I'm kidding.
Unless they can't cook or they just have terrible taste. What is really the difference between having it, seared or having it not seared? And just perfect. There's just like really crazy reactions, like, oh my god, you didn't sear it for 1 minute on both sides. Like, that's a huge mistake. And I get it from a cooking has a whole vibe to it that I appreciate, being out on a grill with friends, or you can melt the butter and you hear the sizzle of the steak in the pan, and there's a whole ritual to it. I think that does have value, but there's also value to just not doing any of that, not having to clean up the dishes, just cutting it up, eating it, and feeling really different after eating it, feeling much more energy and vitality, and the digestion is incredibly smooth. It's really remarkable.
Yeah, I'll get a little woo-woo with it. I don't really care anymore. Before I was like really hesitant to talk about any of these things, but now I'm just like, I could care less. But I was gonna say, with the raw meat, yeah, first of all, the feeling of it, I feel way better after eating it, way more energized. I actually have to be careful. I was talking to my friend about it. I can't eat it too late in the day, or else I'm like amped up. Like, I can't eat it for dinner like a lot because I have too much energy afterwards. And so yeah, that's one thing. But I find that when I was eating a lot of cooked meat, I felt heavier, like energetically, and kind of a bit slower. But it's not like it was a sluggish digestion thing. It was just like my day to day. I felt a bit more dense is kind of the word that I refer to, but yeah, just not as light, not as flowy, not as energized on an emotional level. And then when I was eating, I still eat a little bit of cooked meat here and there. It's like if I'm with my family or if I'm at a function, I'm not going to bring my tartare in a bag and be like, sorry, I'm not eating this. I'm not that neurotic. But I will notice that now that I eat so much raw meat, when I eat cooked meat, I can feel different, and emotionally it's almost like I'm a little bit more aggravated, a little bit more angry, and it's nothing crazy, but I think just being more tapped in, I can actually feel the differences. And it's the same with I mean, people will definitely agree with this when it comes to eating a lot of processed food compared to fresh food. They're like, oh yeah, I feel so much better when I'm not eating like whatever disgusting hyper processed protein creation and I'm eating just a steak with like whole foods, right? But then I found it was like that, and I was eating animal based with a little bit of raw, because I discovered the whole repeat thing back in like 2020, 2021. And I was like, ooh, this is fun. And I was eating raw liver, and I had been vegetarian, vegan before that, not for too long, like a couple of years, but eating like that, eating really healthy whole foods, of course I felt better. I felt fantastic. But then when I ate raw, mostly, it was like this whole new level of clarity emotionally and balance, that I didn't feel as much from like eating a lot of cooked meat, if that makes sense. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. And coming from a place of studying Ayurveda for a while, they conceptualize health as an energy system. And
Mm-hmm.
when your digestion requires more energy, you have less energy for the rest of your vital systems. You have less energy for clarity, imagination, for a buoyant mood and levity. And all that comes from having food that requires less energy to digest. So as if you're eating a more vital form of food, you're going to have more energy for the other aspects of your body, mind. And that makes perfect sense. And I feel this with fasting as well, when I'm not,
Mm.
and I know this is another controversial topic in certain spaces, but when I am on a multi-day fast and I'm not digesting, I just require less sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I have more clarity. I have more energy. My mood is more stable. And it obviously isn't something that lasts forever, because eventually you just starve, but it's something that is really apparent and obvious in my direct experience. And it's the same thing with eating raw meat. And if you were to guide someone who was intrigued by this part of the conversation and starting to eat raw meat, how would you let them know the best way to start?
Um, I would definitely just say like start slow, just don't go crazy. Like just have make some good tartar recipes with like really high quality grass-fed, grass-finished meat. Um, that's what I would say. Like people jump into like just trying to eat ground beef straight, and I'm just like, no, I don't like doing that. It's gross. I've done it. I choose not to. I choose to enjoy my food. See how the body responds. And if someone's really toxic, they have to be careful. Especially if their gut is like really off. Even the raw milk thing, people can have a bad reaction. There's people that are like, oh, I got sick from it. I'm like, no, you didn't. Probably did not get sick from it. You probably had a bit of a detox reaction from it. So even like slowly building it up with raw kefir before, and then slowly adding a bit of raw meat. I know I don't do like the raw chicken thing. I just don't really like I don't really want to eat chickens that much. I have pet chickens. It's not the reason, but I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. I just don't feel this draw to eat raw chicken. So I just stick with what is it, like the ruminant animals? That's what it's called. Sometimes I don't know why my brain blanks on that, but like, lamb, venison, elk, um, moose. What else do I eat raw? Mostly that. Of course, beef. Those are the things that I tend to eat, and it's just kind of, yeah, just doing it a little bit. People really freak out, but it's also like, have you eaten sushi before? It's the same thing. you know. So yeah, that's kind of, I think, what I would advise. And the raw primal diet, like the really like strict version of it, with like autogenous water planets, it's really intense, and I agree with most of it. I just don't know how realistic it is for a lot of people on a day-to-day basis. I've done it before and I felt really good, but it's for me it wasn't super sustainable to do it perfectly, and it wasn't like that enjoyable. So I kind of have adapted it in a way where I'm like, yeah, I know it's not perfect. I know that some things I'm consuming probably aren't the best in, I guess, that lens, but I feel really good eating this way. So I don't know. I feel like I've found balance with it as well. And it's interesting you said you studied Ayurveda, because I've recently started to dive into that a little bit. And again, it like makes so much sense where none of these, not none of them, but like all of these diet protocols or anything, it's they could be really ideal for someone in a specific state, like including I make fun of the repeat people, but I actually I kind of eat like a heater to be honest, like a lot of the time. Not completely, but in the summer I get pretty peaty with it. But it's like I'm not against it. It's I'm against it for everyone all the time. Like all of these things have their place. Even people doing um like certain raw like vegan diets or like juice cleanses or these things, like I'm not pro them. I wouldn't do it now, but I see how for some people in certain circumstances it's undeniable that they got help from that, but not for like a long, I guess, a long-term thing. Yeah, and that's where it's just like, there's a time and a place for these things, and like learning how to use them properly is so important. Yeah.
So true. Yeah, that I'm not against any of. There's principles at play and everything that catches on that can be learned from and adapted and used to some benefit. I think when people become overly dogmatic or overly enthusiastic and kind of feverish about something, then you could you gotta step it back a little bit and ask some questions. And one part of that I wanted to cover was Agenis van der Plas. You mentioned he was
Hmm.
a big raw meat and raw milk enthusiast, and is the reason why raw milk is so easily available in California. He spearheaded a campaign in
Right. Yeah, he did.
2001, I think. Yeah, so
Yeah.
everyone in California can get raw milk at a health food store, unlike
Oh.
most other places in America. And it's because of this man, Agenis Vanderplatz, who passed away under mysterious condition. He may even be still. There are some people who say he's still alive out there, and he faked his
Oh.
death. But he's a really interesting character who's was
Hmm.
is a big kind of like the Ray Pete of the raw meat community in a way.
Yeah, well, he like created the whole diet, and there's a lot of truth to it, and it's interesting because the more I studied other areas of nutrition, I how do I word this? I went down this kind of rabbit hole when it came to fat and um like the best forms to eat fat and everything. And the person I was learning it from was not um like an what am I trying to say? Not a raw meat person, not an autogenous person. Like I think they have raw milk, but it wasn't like they're not in that world at all. Like they were saying it from this other perspective that it's like it's not just the seed oils that are bad when it's heated. Like any fat when it's heated it gets damaged. And it's like not to say this is their argument is like never ever to have like cooked meat because of the cooked fat aspect is really damaging. And it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, yeah, but there's also benefits of um certain things and whatnot. But what I was going to say is that yeah, the more I learned about that, the more I realized that like raw fat is one of the best ways to consume it. And it's like not damaged when you're having it in its raw form. And that goes even to say about seed oils. And this is, I know this might be controversial. People might get mad, but if you go for far enough down, you actually do need omega 6s. Omega 6s are not inherently bad. And the whole argument is that like all polyunsaturated fat is horrible. It's like that's the worst thing. It's from the devil. It's so bad. But it's not necessarily that simple. Of course, we know that like a huge issue with the inflammation is the omega 6 to 3. ratio, and like people are over consuming seed oils, but we actually still need omega-6s, and a lot of people now aren't getting enough because they're cutting out all sources of it. But having it in the form of like raw seeds and like, or like really high quality, what is this oil that I'm trying to say? I don't know why I'm like forgetting it. Like, oh, evening primrose oil, and like just different oil sources that have it. It's like people freak out about it, but it's not that it's inherently bad. It's like the way that it's being consumed, and we still need those things. So yeah, that's an interesting rabbit hole to go down. But what was I getting at with this? Oh yeah, I guess like learning more, it like the autogenous stuff makes sense, especially from that perspective that it's like as soon as you're heating up fat, you like to a certain extent, like you're destroying it in some ways, and it's causing more damage to the body than benefits. And like raw fat is really, really good for binding to toxins and helping detox more than so many other things. Like it's really fantastic. And you can even see it's like the people talk about that with coconut oil. And it's like, okay, well, that's also, it's really good to have like raw fat from the animal and like raw bone marrow and all these things. Yeah, that's a whole topic that gets a little crazy, but it's an interesting one for sure.
What do you do with raw bone marrow?
You can like kind of whip it. Sometimes it doesn't whip super well when it's raw, but even just chopping it up a bit, mixing it with honey and putting it on like little chips, or even just eating it straight is really good. I'm mixing it in tartar. Yeah. It tastes like butter. It's so good. I don't know if you've had cooked bone marrow, but raw bone marrow is really delicious. Yeah.
I've had both. I really love them both. I may sometimes, so I'll get these canoe bones. They're sort of shaped like
Yeah. They're so
size like
good.
that. And you can kind of just pop out the marrow, and you've got this little cube, and you can toss it into a shaker smoothie, or eat it, or make ice cream with it. Or sometimes I will chop it up and toss it in with some like something that I'm cooking, like ground beef or eggs, and it kind of just ends up in there. And there's a lot of great ways to eat it. And then I'll use those bones to make bone broth with some other bones at some point. And
Nice.
I do like the raw marrow is really powerful, underrated.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm a huge fan of it for sure.
There was one other question on the raw meat front, getting started. You mentioned not starting with just a brick of ground beef and eating it with a spoon. What cut of beef would you recommend starting with?
I love ground beef. People think that's weird. They're like, "What's your favorite?" I'm like, "Ground beef for sure." I make tartar with it. Um, and when I was first making it, I thought like, "Oh, I don't know how much I like this," and I realized it's because I wasn't making with ground beef. I was cutting up steaks, and steaks I think are better cooked than raw. To be honest, I like ground beef better raw than steaks raw, because it has the fat and like other connective tissue mixed in. So I think that's what makes it taste better. Yeah, but I mean, you can also make carpaccio, and that's really good. But anything, try a few. But I will say, like, I don't like just straight raw ribeye. It doesn't sit right with me. I don't want to eat it like that. Yeah, I'm a ground beef girl all the way.
Okay, so do start with ground beef, but make it into tartar is the suggestion.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's so good. The one I made this morning was unbelievable. Honey and balsamic vinegar
I will share
mixed in
some links down below to show you some of Mikayla's tartars, because they do look amazing. They'll make you want to get started eating them. And I'll share that my favorite cut that I've had aside from the ground beef is tenderloin is really good, because it's just so tender. It reminds me of eating like a delicious poke bowl. It just kind of melts in your mouth and
Yeah,
isn't like
that's
tough
true.
or difficult to eat. That's really good too. And heart is another one that is really tasty, which is
Yeah.
a muscle. The heart's a muscle, so it's not potentially icky like some other organ meats. It doesn't have like a specific flavor. It's just like this very good, easy to eat tasty mussel that also has cosmic nutrients in it from the fact that it pulses our blood throughout our body. Or in
Yeah,
this case,
it's
the cow.
intense. I always make heart tartar. It's really good. Yeah, I like that
That
one.
does sound good.
Yeah.
There's something in the Agenus Vanderplot's thought stream about like raw cheese unsalted or something like that. Do you know about that?
Yeah, oh my gosh, gotta refresh my memory a little bit. I haven't looked into this stuff since last year. I just kind of did it and then was learning other things. But I think it can be really good for, oh my gosh, if I get this wrong, people are gonna come at me. But I think it's really good for like binding to toxins. It can be really fantastic for that. And there's something that he says about having it like with or without honey that can also change that. I don't really understand how that works. I'm kind of like,
Mm.
well, I don't know. A lot of the stuff he says, I'm like, I don't know, but I feel good sometimes. So, and then I'll learn some things other ways. I'm like, oh, that's like what he was talking about. But yeah, the raw unsalted cheese, I think it can be a really good binder, and it has a lot of, well, the whole unsalted thing, they're just really against salt. So it's kind of that. But yeah, it's all, any raw cheese is just like so good for gut health as well. And
It's
just
the
like
best.
nourishing the body. Yeah.
Much
It's
easier to
fantastic.
find than raw milk too. It's pretty much
Mm-hmm.
available in most grocery stores. You can find some form of raw cheese, unlike raw milk. Very easy. I think that's going to really become a bigger part of the conversation, just because it's so nutritious, so delicious, and relatively easy to make in the store and the ship, and it fits really well into our food system. And I
Yeah,
think raw cheese is going to be huge in the coming years.
totally. I was talking to, there's a farmer's market and I go to it all the time. And the cheese guys, I love them. They're the best. Cheese people, it's so funny because it's like their whole life. I'm like, wow, so much about cheese. Like, it's like wine people, but it's with cheese, and it's really fascinating. I love when people are passionate about things like that. It makes me so happy. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, the cheese guys. So I'll always go there and I'll be like, okay, give me another raw cheese. And I just try all these different raw cheeses and they just give me all these samples. They love me. I also spend a lot of money there. But, it's so much fun because I get to try all these cheeses from Europe and Canada. And then we get to talk about the raw milk thing. Oh, it's so ridiculous. And it's all these we can't bring in these certain cheeses because they don't meet the regulations. And I'm like, God forbid. It's yeah. So I really, yeah, I do enjoy that for sure.
raw cheese is magic. It really is, and the fact that we can get it from all these different parts of the world and it's still good, it's still delicious. It is a lot like wine. You can taste the terroir. There's a million different ways to make it, and I absolutely love cheese. It's definitely the best, and I think there's so much there's so much in the cheese making process that people just aren't aware of
Yeah.
at all, and you can really taste it, and it's absolutely amazing. It's unfortunate what has happened to cheese too. It's just been completely commodified and industrialized for the most part, and then you just got this like kind of
Mm-hmm.
gloopy stuff with not much flavor compared to what it
No.
really could be or should be.
Yeah, totally. It's an interesting thing for sure.
How about lymph? Tell me about lymph.
Oh, this is my new favorite things. um, I Yeah, I've been diving into this. Actually, well, yeah, it's been a thing that is, it's kind of like the wellness thing that's been around for a really long time. But it was the Augenist stuff that brought way more attention to it because like he talked about how, it kind of gets hardened in a way and it's like not flowing properly. It's not moving properly. And even if, you're moving and doing all these things due to toxins, a big thing is the seed oils. Like he's really big on the seed oils cause lymph issues. Um, that it causes a lot of issues in our whole body. And one of the things that, I mean, there's so many aspects of it. And you probably follow Melanie like Melanie, whatever her name is. But she's amazing with the lymph stuff. Like she posts so much fantastic information on it. But yeah, it's so interesting because we see people, like most people have really stagnant lymph. It's a huge issue because everyone's stagnant nowadays. They're stagnant physically and they're stagnant emotionally, and that manifests into the body always. And we can see it where it's like, where do people have fat deposits? It's underneath their arms, it's in their bellies, and it's like their inner thighs. And it's like some areas as well. But, and here, like we see people who have, these big double chins. And a lot of these times, these people aren't even overweight. They just have like these weird fat deposits. And you'll see people be like, oh, I just need to get rid of like this little belly fat, or like these batwing arms and these things. And it's like not necessarily a fat issue, it's a lymph issue. And it's because, like there's a lot of toxins, and fat usually accumulates around areas that are toxin heavy, because toxins can get stored in fat and then they're stable in fat. They're not stable when they're floating around your body. So having a little fat on you isn't the worst thing from like a toxin perspective. But anyway, where I was getting with this, with the lymph stuff, yeah, it's such an important thing, especially because people are so stagnant. Like before, people wouldn't really have to worry about it, and that's where you see a lot of people arguing. They're like, your lymph system can drain itself. You don't need to do a lymphatic drainage massage. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe if we weren't sitting for 14 hours a day, it would be different. But even people who work out and, are fairly active, it's usually not enough, especially due to toxin stuff. So I think it's really important to do lymph work on a regular basis. And that can be done in a whole bunch of different ways. Like the regular massage is important. Obviously, just walking, that's huge. And what else? The really hot baths and sauna, super good. Dry brushing, there's like a bunch of different tools. But I think a big aspect in it as well is like when people are emotionally stagnant, that stagnation kind of manifests into the body. Like and vice versa. Like when someone's physically stagnant, they become emotionally stagnant. That's always a piece I kind of bring in, because I think a lot of people, I don't know, I've seen it more online recently, but a lot of people don't bring in the emotional piece. And I've tried to make an effort to bring that in a lot more, because I don't see very much of it. And I think it's just super important. So, yeah.
Very important. That is so essential. I always try and use the term body mind whenever I can, because they really are linked. If just as you mentioned, the stagnant body, stagnant mind, and a depressed body sitting all day is going to lead to more of a depressed mind, like compressed. And the seated thing is often perceived through the lens of like calories. It's like, oh, if you get a standing desk, you'll burn more calories. And I guess that's kind of a silly way to look at it, but it's like true on some level. But the more important piece is allows your body, which is a series of hoses, to actually flow and allow the lymph to drain, and you can kind of bounce around a little bit more. I love doing the Big Six by Perry.
Oh yeah, I do that every morning.
Every morning,
yeah. It's so easy. It's so easy. Yeah.
Incredibly easy. Yeah, I was in the sauna. There's this sauna ice plunge studio that opened here in Venice called Like Minded, and I was in there with some friends, and they were telling me to do your detox stance. And I was like, all right, so I had to
your detox stance. That's so good.
I had to give this presentation in front of the whole sauna about the Big Six, and I was like, hopefully at least somebody takes this home with them.
But that's great.
Every morning, and then also if I'm stationary, working for a while, just getting up, doing the Big Six, bouncing around a little bit, doing some like Tai Chi arm swings, it just makes me feel so much better. It's such an easy lift, and it's amazing the impact. It's one of the lowest effort, highest ROI things that I think anyone can do.
Yeah, and it's free.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a massive thing.
Another big one is legs up the wall. That's a huge one. I spoke to Carlisle about that on another episode, and that's such a I do that pretty much every day as well. I got to put the legs up the wall.
Oh, I need to do that. I haven't done that in a while. Yeah.
Do you do any
Yeah.
other lymph routines or anything like that?
I think I, for myself, I just really try to focus on walking a lot every day. That's where I notice the biggest difference. Even, well, I've been doing this protocol, so I've been super low energy the past 2 weeks, like barely able to do anything. But um, usually I'm walking like at least 15,000 steps when, I'm in my routine. And that, like upping it, because normally before I was around like 7,000, 8,000, but then I was working out. So I kind of justified it. I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing my functional patterns and like lifting still. So it's not a big deal if I don't walk more. But I have to say, when I went from just like my day to day walking, which was like, yeah, just walking around and then, maybe like a little walk, to like actually making an effort to hit like 14, 15,000 steps a day, plus even more if I can, that's when I noticed the biggest difference. And it wasn't necessarily like a weight loss thing as much as like I could actually see my body change. And it was totally to do with like a inflammation thing, like a lymph. Like once I got my body moving more, it just, yeah, it worked. And it's not like I randomly, was in like a huge calorie deficit. You're not going to randomly lose so much weight because you add on like 5,000 more steps a day. And I don't even think I actually lost weight. It was more, yeah, just the way my body looked. And people commented on it too. They were like, oh, what did you do to your face? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, your jaw looks more snatched. Like, I was like, they're like, did you get work done? I'm like, no, I promise I didn't. Like, what are you saying? And like my one friend pointed it out. He was like, I swear your face looks so different. And we were looking at pictures, and I was so much puffier before, and I think that was a big part of it. There's so many things that can have, to do with that, but that's a big thing I've been adding into my routine. I've noticed a huge difference with. Yeah.
You did share photos, and it was remarkable how different they were. And I imagine the lymph focus certainly did play a major role. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
share that picture down below as well, and the or a link to that post we made, and then also the big six for anyone who wants to see that. I'll share that down below, so I don't do it right now on the podcast for people who are listening. But it's definitely worth looking into and integrating into your life for everyone who doesn't currently do that. It really is fascinating, the whole world of the lymph and the results that can come as a result of really simple application.
Yeah. Was that the photo of like the mold thing that I posted?
Oh, it might have been. Was that a different topic or
Yeah,
related?
that one was like, so I went through really horrible mold toxicity, or like mold illness. People have different names. I was in a moldy place in Mexico, and I got so sick. I thought that I was going to die. Like, it was the worst experience I've ever had. And yeah, those photos were from when I was, yeah, in the moldy place, and I looked awful. I was so sick. And then when I did all that, and that's when I started actually doing lymphatic drainage as well. Big difference for sure. Yeah.
The mold is a whole nother can of words. I'm sure it's somewhat related to the heavy metals and the EMF and all the other toxins
Yeah,
that were
it
placed
is.
on another. It's all kind of the same thing, really. It's just pollution, toxicity, or
Hmm.
misalignment with nature, but we can kind of break it up into its own piece. But I think a lot of people are likely dealing with moldy issues as well.
Yeah, it's a huge one. And I think even, yeah, it's even within the health space, like some people get really hyper focused on mold, or they're not focused on it enough. It's kind of one or the other. Sometimes it's a good balance. But it's a huge issue because, like, yeah, technically it's not, it kind of can be considered a root cause, but usually there's underlying issues going on for people to react to mold in a certain way. But if someone's in a moldy house and they have any underlying conditions, mold will probably bring it out. Most practitioners I've talked to about that with mold, they say that it's like it'll expose any health issues going on, and that can kind of be a blessing and a curse. But yeah, it's really related to like heavy metal, EMFs. It's all these things, and it kind of comes back to I don't know if you've looked into the cell danger response stuff before. It's a really interesting rabbit hole to go into, but yeah, it's just like it's another environmental toxin, and the way that we build houses now, and just like all these things, it's problematic. But yeah, the molds, I think one of the craziest things, it's similar to like the heavy metals, but it's really affecting on the mental health. And there's physical symptoms, but mental more than anything. Like people will think that they're crazy and that they are like schizophrenic and actually feel, they'll get like psychosis, or like actually have symptoms of psychosis and all these crazy things. And it's actually mold exposure. And there's nothing like inherently wrong with them. Like they're not a broken psychotic individual. And I don't even know how much I believe that. There's so many layers to it. And yeah, it's actually due to these factors. And it just makes me think like how many people are, being like they're on 20 different medications, and it's actually just one of these underlying things that, yeah, it's really fascinating.
It is, and it reminds me of one of the quotes from Diogenes that really encapsulates health and disease, I think, fantastically well and simply, is that all disease comes down to too many toxins and not enough nutrients. And it's such a beautiful, simplistic way to perceive health. And then once you come from that understanding, you can think, okay, how do I get more nutrients in? And how do I mitigate or eliminate or minimize as many toxins that I possibly can? And through that simple perspective, you can really make some significant strides in up-leveling vitality. And you've gone through a really beautiful presentation about some of those ways in which you've done that so far. And we're already somehow 55 minutes into this conversation. So I really, really enjoyed it and appreciate it. I want to give you some time to also share the creative work that you do and the company that you founded, if you wouldn't mind telling us a bit about that, because that's super interesting as well.
Yeah, for sure. So when was this? It was like 2021. I started using tallow. I was always a natural healthcare person. Like I always had I was an essential oil girl when I was like 15. I was into all the natural skincare. I was making stuff at home. And then I found the tallow, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And I was just using like straight tallow, and I smelled, like a snake walking around. So I was like, wait, I don't know how much I like this. So then I thought, oh, it can't be that hard to make. And I was literally just making it for myself. And then my friends were like, oh my gosh, you gotta make this and sell it. So yeah, I did that. And now I make a bunch of different tallow products. And I also have a background in herbalism. I'm doing my clinical herbalism, I guess, what do you call it? Like certification? I don't know. Right now it's kind of a gray area with like what these things even are when they're not a university degree. But yeah, so I've worked a lot with plants in that sense, and making these formulas that it's not just like essential oils and tallow, which is like what a lot of people do. And that's not to insult anyone. Like really, at the end of the day, like if anyone's using natural products, it's fantastic. But a lot of times the ones on the market, especially for the face, they're not necessarily formulated in a way that really complements the skin barrier and I guess like certain skin conditions in general. A lot of people are just like throwing in random ingredients that are like, I guess a good example is, okay, we have acne. I'm only saying this because I've been studying it a lot recently. And it's we want to make like an acne face cream or face oil or whatever. A lot of times people will just look into a bunch of ingredients that are good for acne and throw them all together in one. But that it lacks balance, and it's like not necessarily the best way to create like a herbal formula. And I guess studying Ayurveda, you probably understand this a little bit more. It needs to be like balanced energetically, where you want like one kind of master ingredient and then you might have other supporting herbs in it. But when it's like 10 different herbs that are good for acne at once, it might not actually be helping the person with the acne, because it's actually causing it's like too much. It kind of is chaos for the skin and the body in some ways. So yeah, where was I getting with this? I've been really strategic with like the ingredients I'm using, and people seem to really like, especially the face creams. And yeah, I still make it all at home, and that's been really fun recently. I'm definitely gonna have more products coming out soon, which I'm excited about.
Beautiful. I've tried your face cream, and I've tried a lot of tallows, and I'm not gonna say which one's best, which one's worse.
You're like, oh no, you're gonna piss off the other tallow people.
Definitely
Yeah.
have a lot of friends in this space. It's very trendy because it
Hmm.
works, and yours is exceptional. It's really good. It smells great, and it goes on smooth, which I think anytime something trends, there entrepreneurs sense opportunity, and you're gonna have
Hmm.
some that work better than others. Yours works very well, and it smells great, and it goes on smooth, and
Well,
I
thanks.
I commend you for that. It's awesome, and I'll send a link down below for that as well, for everyone who wants to check out some cool, effective, amazing skincare products. And thank you for doing what you do, for sharing everything that you share, and for creating what you create. I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, this was so great. I haven't done a podcast in a long time, so this is fun. Hopefully,
Well,
it wasn't
you're
too
doing
awkward.
not at all, not at all. We were talking before this, and you're currently on a heavy metal cleanse, which we didn't get to
Yeah, I'm a
talk too much.
little woo right now.
You're coming through perfectly clear to me. I couldn't tell at all. I think
Oh
that
gosh, I feel like so autistic right now. So yeah.
Mikayla Sprung, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.